We're going to get started. So I'm going to pass things over to Holly and Libby. And again, my name is Maria. You can feel free to ask me questions directly if you have any technical questions at all.
Hello, everybody. Hi. Welcome. We're glad you're here. I'm Holly Rogers, and I am one of the co-founders of the Center for Koru Mindfulness. I'm also one of the co-developers of our curriculum, Koru Mindfulness. And I have for many years been working at the Student Counseling Center at Duke University. I'm a psychiatrist there, but I also have had the good fortune to be able to teach mindfulness and meditation. And over the years, we developed this curriculum that we call Koru, and we're going to spend some time sharing it with you today. And this is my colleague, Libby.
Hi, everyone. As Holly said, I'm Libby, and I'm one of the other co-founders. So Holly and I co-founded the Koru Center together. And for many, many years, I worked at Duke's Counseling Center and had the privilege of working with Holly and teaching Koru at Duke. And just in the last year or so, retired to devote a little bit more time to the Koru Center and actually to teach Koru in the community. So that's been a fun transition for me. We have an upcoming training out on the West Coast, and we were trying to figure out how might we let people know a little bit about Koru out on the West Coast. So we thought we would try this webinar and give folks a little idea of who we are and what Koru is all about. So we'll get going with that, and hopefully you guys will have some questions and we can really spend some time getting to know you as well.
So I'm going to share our screen, and we're going to show you a few slides, hopefully not too many. All right.
So let us set the stage a little bit about how we are going to spend our time today. And again, as Maria said, anytime you have a question, please do pipe up and we'll move through these, but we don't want to move through them and forget where you guys are in your own process if a question pops up for you. So we've already done a little bit of our hellos, and we want to give you some background in Koru and how Koru came about. What the course experience is like, a little bit about our teacher training and what anybody might expect if they are accepted and come into our teacher training program. And then we want to introduce you to Flannery Hischelin right now, who is one of our teachers, and she's going to come in and talk with us along the way about her experience teaching Koru. Flannery is one of our dear colleagues who has been at Duke and teaching Koru specifically in the last year. And Flannery will tell you a little bit about what intrigued her about Koru and why she chose Koru. Flannery has been teaching Koru Basic and did a Koru retreat for us this year. So I think you'll get a little bit of a sense of her experience and some of her students' experiences with Koru. So can folks see Flannery? Flannery, are you there?
I'll put her, I'm going to unmute you, Flannery.
Okay.
And then I'm going to make you, the spotlight video. So for those on the phone, I think you still should be able to see a little video of Flannery accompanying the slide.
Hi.
We're so happy Flannery could do this with us. So I'm glad you're with us, Flannery. Thank you.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
So let's move along.
Okay, I am going to talk a little bit about Koru and how it came to be. So the thing is, I have been a mindfulness and meditation practitioner for many years. I was doing that prior to starting to work at the Student Counseling Center at Duke. So when in 1996 I started working with Duke students, it was immediately clear that many of the issues they were coming in with were stress-related conditions that I felt could be alleviated by a meditation practice, or at least learning about mindfulness and integrating it into their lives. So I set out to start teaching them and pretty quickly discovered that it was not actually working that well. I could get classes going, students would start with me, but by the second or third class, you know, half of them will be gone. By the end of the year, maybe 3, 4, 5 students had really stuck with me, and I felt they had learned a meaningful amount of mindfulness. So I got really curious about, well, what would have to be different? Like what would we have to do to create an experience that really hooked these young people? And you know, there is a small minority of students who have a contemplative bent and are interested in these kind of practices. But I really got interested in this question of how could we engage the dominant culture, or pockets of the culture who just would not typically be aware of or interested in these types of practices. So fortunately, I had a resident join me. A psychiatry resident joined me, Margaret Maytan, who also had a background in meditation and mindfulness, and I asked her to help me with this task of creating a program that students would like. So Margaret and I just started trying things. We had more classes. We had fewer classes. We taught this skill. We taught that skill. We tried sitting meditation and walking meditation. We rearranged things and we got feedback and we got feedback and we shifted things. And eventually, after many numbers of trial and error, we ended up with a recipe where all of a sudden the students really liked it. We had students enrolling. We had a wait list of 80 students for our class of 12. Students would stay for the whole time, and at the end, they reported that they really had been transformed by their experience. So it was a really dramatic change from we have a class, a few people come, but they don't really stick with it, to this whole different structure that really invited and engaged them. So I think that one of the things that we figured out along the way is that it really needed to be targeted. The content needed to be about and for things that young adults were interested in. Traditional mindfulness programs, often targeted at older adults, they're about sickness and illness, things that college students and college-age adults just aren't that interested in. You know, they're interested in relationships, in academics, and finding a job, and being broke. Those are the things that are of interest to people at that time of life. So we made sure our stories and our metaphors were about that. We recognized that they were very busy, and they were probably not going to engage in a class that was really long and expected them to have really long periods of sitting meditation. So we experimented with lengths of time, and we found that 10 minutes a day for 4 weeks really seemed to make a difference for them. We made the class accountable. When they register, they have to come, they have to commit. They have to commit to attending all 4 classes. They have to commit to doing their daily practice. And we found the right size of group that really makes them feel like a community. So we ended up with 12. We tried larger and smaller groups. We ended up with 12 so that they really get to know each other and get interested in each other's progress. And we ended up feeling that our program was quite effective. We eventually did a randomized controlled trial, which I'll tell you more about in just a minute. I'm aware I feel like I'm talking a lot and I can't see you guys, so I hope you're hanging in there with me. If you have any questions, do let Maria know. So this original curriculum that Margaret and I developed, it was a 4-week course. It was 4 weeks, even though the most common feedback we got at the end of 4 weeks was, it should be longer, more classes, please, more classes. But we found that if we made the course 5 weeks or 6 weeks, and we tried that several times, students quit coming after the 4th week. So we eventually, after trying lots of different things, discovered that we needed to have a 4-week class, and then we created a second 4-week class, which we called 2.0, which students also enrolled in. And then we also created a half-day Koru retreat. And by breaking it up in these ways and inviting the students to recommit each time, we really managed to keep them engaged and keep them practicing. We eventually developed a book that is the required reading for the course, And then we're very excited that in the last year we have developed an app also in response to students saying, is there any way you could get this log on my phone? So part of the Koru plan is they have to log a daily meditation, which used to be on paper, but they of course wanted it on their phones. So now it's on their phone, and it is really making a big difference as far as their experience and accountability, because they log their meditation on their phone and send it to me, their teacher. I reply to it and send it back to them. So that's been a lot of fun, and that's one of our newest things. I think now, oh, I was going to tell you about our randomized controlled trial. So Margaret and I knew that this program was working really well. The students loved it, but of course we needed to get together some data. So we were lucky enough to have one of our research colleagues at Duke, Dr. Jeffrey Greason, who is a really well-recognized mindfulness researcher, help us design a study. And we measured mindfulness, self-compassion, perceived stress, and sleep. Now, what we were really interested in figuring out, MBSR, mindfulness-based stress reduction, is of course the gold standard. It's an 8-week course. Each class is 2.5 hours long, and the recommended amount of daily meditation is 45 minutes a day. It had become clear that our college students were not able to commit that amount of time. So the question was, could you take this very targeted, very focused program designed specifically for college students, only 4 weeks, only 10 minutes a day of meditation, and could you get measurable results? And we were very delighted to see that the numbers reflected our experience, which was that the students, after 4 weeks, were more mindful, significantly more mindful, had greater self-compassion, were less stressed, and were sleeping better. I don't know how many of you out there are researchers, but in general, the smaller the p-value, the better. So p-values under 0.05 are considered significant, so we had very good p-values. And d-values, effect size, it's pretty uncommon in meditation research to have large effect sizes. Typically, you see medium or small effect sizes. So our first randomized controlled trial of Koru showed us that the students were having the experience that we felt like they were having, and really gave us the evidence that we were having the impact on students that we wanted to have on them.
You know, an interesting side piece to this, I don't know, Holly, if you were going to speak to this, is that when this was published in the Journal of American College Health, we were surprised to learn that it was the most downloaded journal article of 2014 in the Journal of American College Health, the most downloaded article. And I think for us, what that spoke to is really a curiosity among college health folks around how to find a program of resilience building for college students. So we were quite surprised, and we think it kind of speaks to this wish among all of us on college campuses to find some programs that will help our students. So I'm going to talk with you just a bit about what Koru Basic. We have, Holly noted that we have 3 core curriculum. We have Koru Basic, and then we have a more advanced Koru 2.0. For students who've gone through our 4-week basic, they can opt in to a more advanced 4-week course we call 2.0. And then we also have a 4-hour silent retreat called Koru Retreat that any student can take part in, that our teachers are trained in. But let's look just for a bit about what Koru Basic is. And Holly went over a bit of this, but I'll just repeat some of that for you. So it's a 4-week course. It's 75-minute classes held over 4 weeks, as we noted, and we really strive for 10 to 12 participants with the real push for diversity of student experiences in that group. And what we find is it's pretty inspiring to see students from different perceived walks of life and real walks of life come together and share their practice together. We really work to build community. It is designed for somebody new to mindfulness and meditation, although I will say that folks who have a meditation background will often come to Koru to restart their practice if they've been away from it for a while.
Yeah, and I would just echo that. It seems more and more I'm having people show up in my Koru classes who say, I've tried to learn meditation, I've never been able to stick with it. I'm coming to Koru, trying to help myself build the habit. And it seems to be helpful for
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. So we really want to try and lay a platform for our students that will help them build a lasting practice. So how we attend to that, and this again has come through a lot of trial and error, and we feel like we kind of hit the sweet spot with this, is that we require that they attend every class. Students are used to being students. They get that structure from the very get-go. We say, we need you to commit to 4 weeks. If this is a busy time and you can't commit to 4 weeks, opt into another class so that a student who's waiting can get into this class. So we ask that up front. It's remarkable how they commit and how that builds motivation. Again, we ask that they do a 10-minute daily practice, that they log their practice, and right now they have the use of the app to do that. And part of that weekly activity is also that they choose a mindful activity and do that once a day. Taking a shower, doing the dishes, whatever that might be. And then there is a gratitude practice as well with that, with the curriculum and the logging of that. The practice logs, as Holly noted, now students are able to use the app on an Android or an iPhone after there's a timer on that app. After they are done meditating, their log pops up. They can note their practice, what they noticed with their practice, 2 gratitudes, and they can submit to that to the teacher dashboard. So it goes right to their teacher for responding, helping them along the way throughout the week. And then the
Coaching
them,
nagging them, as I like to say.
Uh-huh.
And the app is free.
It is. And then we have Holly's The Mindful 20-something as the accompanying reading, which follows the Koru basic and really digs into some of the questions around why do we do this thing called meditation and how will it help us live our lives with a little bit less suffering.
Hey Libby, we had a question that I thought was a great question.
Good. Let's.
Can you guys stop your screens here for just a moment so they can see your lovely faces? So the question was, why is it called Koru?
Ah, great question.
That is a great question.
That's what I said too.
Well, Holly needs to share that because it's her experience that we came to Koru.
Yeah. So Koru is the New Zealand Maori word for the unfurling fern frond, the spiral shape actually of the unfurling fern frond. And I've had the excellent good fortune of living and working in New Zealand for a couple of years. And it's a beautiful country. I don't know how many of you have been to New Zealand, but they have these massive ferns the size of trees all over the place. And so all over the place are these big, giant ferns unfurling. And that shape, that spiral shape is called a koru. That's the Maori word for it. And it means looped or spiraled, but it symbolizes balanced growth or harmony or growth around a stable center. And when we think about what we are wishing for our young adults as they develop, this sort of balanced growth seemed to really fit. So we decided to call our program. And thank you for asking, because we should have mentioned that.
Interestingly, Koru is now being taught in New Zealand, and we had, I think, a really rich conversation with tribal elders around our choice of Koru and sort of this idea of a blessing for us to use the Koru word for this practice. So interestingly, Koru is now in New Zealand. So,
where it kind of started.
Where it started. Shall we move along? Any other questions? Yeah.
That's it so far, but yes, please keep using the Q&A as you did. Thank you for that question, and I'll throw them in there when they get to the right pause point.
Okay. So we wanted to talk with you guys just a little bit about this idea of our mindfulness course really using the technology that our students seem to be really asking for. So like Holly said, so much of Koru has been informed by student feedback. And I think that has really led us to where we are with the development of an app that links students to their teachers via the teacher dashboard. So the app features a timer. They can also download our guided meditations if they want to be guided in their practice of 10 minutes. As I said, after they meditate, the participants log their practice and submit it right to their teacher. So there are lots of things that is helpful to students. And this is what it's helpful for. So again, they have a connection to the teacher throughout the week rather than once a week. They seem to really feel like it motivates them to use the log. Versus some students would say, boy, it feels like homework and there was a little bit of difficulty with the logs. It's much more organic and natural for them as they're finishing their meditation to just note that and submit it for their teacher to see and help them along the way if they're struggling with something. There are also on the app tips and resources for them. So if they're struggling, they can go into the daily mindfulness tips. They can review the skills. We have some videos on there that helps teach them a little bit about some of the skills that we're teaching them. So it seems to be something that we're getting feedback from our teachers across the country that students are loving and teachers are actually finding helpful to boost the motivation along the way. So what about Koru teacher training, which is really at this point at the heart of the Center for Koru Mindfulness? I guess it was 5 years or so now. Holly, as we were both working at the Counseling Center, Holly's book, Mindfulness for the Next Generation, Holly and Margaret wrote that first book, which talked about Koru Basic, came out, and we were really, Koru was just going wacko busy on Duke's campus with students wanting to get in. And people across the country were hearing about it, contacting Holly. They were asking for training in the curriculum. And so we decided we would just see if we might cultivate and develop and offer teacher training for folks across the country who wanted to learn how to teach Koru. So that's how the teacher training came into being. And I guess we're now 4 years. The Koru Center maybe has been in existence about 4 years. Let me tell you just briefly about our training. We've got a training coming up this September out West Coast at 1440, and we have 3 phases of teacher training. The first step for anybody interested in being a Koru teacher is to apply to our teacher training program, and there are prerequisites, a mindfulness background. We really have found that you really have to have a mindfulness background to teach mindfulness, just like you have to practice it to get the benefits of it. Once you're accepted into our program, there are 3 phases to the training. The first one is our 3-day training workshop, which is the one we're offering in September, and we've got some here at our home site in Durham in 2018. After you go through the 3-day training, we really find that teachers in training feel ready to go out and begin to offer and teach the Koru Basic, Koru Retreat curriculum. They're ready and eager and jump into the water at that point. What we then ask is that for phase 2, we ask teachers in training to schedule 4 online supervision with Koru faculty and other Koru teachers in training. It's really kind of a rich experience for us to talk with the teachers in training and for them to talk with each other. And we learn from the teachers as well. So it's pretty fulfilling for us as well to do those online supervisions. And then phase 3 is to submit a portfolio which includes some video of teaching our skills, a few other items that are all laid out on our website.
And also during phase 2, you will be teaching 3 Koru basic courses. So phase 1, we train you how to teach. Phase 2, you start having practical experience teaching with supervision. Phase 3, you submit your portfolio for feedback. Where's the time?
So let's move along so we can have plenty of time for Flannery to talk and for us to have some Q&A so we can get to know you guys a little bit. Here are our full teacher tuition fees. I know we have a scholarship program, as you see here. These are all on our website. Feel free to shoot us any questions about this. And those are published on our site as well. So we're happy to talk with you more about that. Here are some of the folks who are teaching Koru. If you know anybody in any of these settings, you might check that out and see what you hear. Harvard has a huge Koru program on campus. Duke, where we are all from, is increasingly growing their Koru community. And we have a lot of these folks who are finding that Koru just seems to be taking off. I think it's the structure that really helps build that student demand. And then we have, what's it like to teach Koru? So let's have Flannery check with you just a bit.
Great. I'm going to unmute Flannery, and then Holly and Libby, will you stop sharing your screen?
Yes.
And I'm going to make you, I'm going to highlight your video, Flannery, so everyone can see you.
Okay. Hi. So wanted to talk with you a little bit about the experience of teaching Koru, and I think also sort of how I ended up choosing Koru as a training for learning how to teach mindfulness and meditation practices. So, first, the experience of teaching Koru has been just so incredibly rewarding for me over the past year. One of the things that has been, I think, most exciting is the diversity in the classes that I've taught, and how much students from just all sorts of different backgrounds have felt that the practices have been valuable to them, have helped reduce stress, has given them opportunities to think about what really matters to them, what they value, connected them with each other. And so watching the impact that even 4 weeks of daily mindfulness can have on students in their lives, people's lives, I think kind of keeps me in it and inspired both for my own practice, but wanting to keep doing it, wanting to teach more. I came to the Koru training. I chose to do the training because I am a psychotherapist and had increasingly begun to devote myself to mindfulness, regular mindfulness practice. I'd taken an MBSR class and found it very useful. It also found meditating 45 minutes a day and the class itself pretty rigorous in terms of trying to fit that into my own life. Gone on several meditation retreats, and I wanted to, I was increasingly starting to just, just sort of integrate the practices that I was doing and learning into my individual sessions, but also wanted to find a way for students and clients that I was working with to gain some of these skills so that they could add on to the work that we were doing, or sort of have that skill training outside of individual therapy. And so I found the Koru teacher training program, and a number of things really appealed to me about it. The fact that I could do the training itself over the course of 3 or 5 days, that it was a very structured approach. One of the things I love about mindfulness right now is that it's everywhere, and you can't really read the New York Times without reading a new article on mindfulness or the benefits of mindfulness. There's so many resources, so many Dharma talks available online. But it also gets a little overwhelming, and it can sort of feel hard to know where to start or where to direct clients or students. And to me, the Koru training felt very clear. It felt like the classes were very structured, and that I could just, once I attended the training and learned them, I could just do it, that it was clear for the students. And I was really excited about the app, which when I first started was in development. I had used, personally used Insight Timer and had some clients using Insight Timer. They had found that a really helpful app. And I was excited that the students could have an app as a part of what I was teaching them, and that we could interact on that medium. So those are some of the things that drew me to doing the training. And then the training itself, I did about a year ago in August, and it was just a wonderful gathering of people from all over the East Coast. We had a student from Turkey who was able to fly in and join us. So an incredible group of mindfulness practitioners, people that were teaching in college and university settings, therapists, and we were, able to be together, share our experiences, practice together. And I think after the training, I felt really confident that I could both structure and market and present a Koru class to the community that I was in, and that I could teach it. That each class felt like it had a very clear set of learning objectives, and that I could move through that with, in the course of my busy schedule with all the other demands and seeing clients and doing groups, that that teaching a Koru class was not an enormous amount of preparation, and that I felt really ready to kind of do it, and could just have a short planning period beforehand and then go. So what else? What else can I tell you?
Well, I think that's probably a good point for people that do have questions. If you want to start, is this the right? Actually, I'll ask Holly and Libby. Is this the right Q&A time or not yet?
And if they have questions for Flannery,
yeah, if you have questions for us, you can use the Q&A, or you can raise hand and we can put you on the video and see your faces, which would be wonderful too, if anyone feels comfortable doing that. Yeah, we
want to meet you.
We would like that if anyone wants to do it, but I understand if you don't. Let's see, I think we can start with one question, which is speaking more about the prereqs. Holly and Libby, I think.
Right.
So, to be honest, our prereqs have evolved a little bit. It just has become more and more clear that you really have to have a pretty good mindfulness practice, a pretty good background in mindfulness to be able to teach effectively. And at the same time, Koru is really structured. So, we're trying to find this middle path where our teachers have experience with mindfulness, but, you don't have to be a fully enlightened being to teach Koru. So we ask, at a minimum, people have taken either an 8-week course like MBSR, MBCT, one of those 8-week programs, or has sat with a Sangha, worked with a teacher over a period of years, or attended a number of retreats. So any kind of combination of any of those things is sort of the mindfulness prerequisite. We ask if you have experience working with young adults. It's helpful if you have experience either teaching or leading groups. It's very important to us that our teachers are comfortable with reaching out into diverse communities, represent diversity, speak to diversity, a lot of knowledge about that, so that's one of the prerequisites. All Koru teachers need to have, at a minimum, a 3-day silent mindfulness retreat, but you don't have to have that before you start the training. Many of our teachers have that or more, but if not, at some point before you complete the program entirely, we ask that you do a retreat. I think those are the prerequisites.
Yeah, I think what also occurred to me is this idea of who are our teachers? What are their backgrounds besides their mindfulness background? We have teachers not only, so we have a Koru teachers spread throughout a number of different institutional settings, and predominantly colleges and universities. They're in wellness centers. We actually have a fair number of faculty who are teaching it within the context of their curriculum. It is embedded in counseling centers as part of their outreach. We have some teachers in athletic programs in universities.
Academic deans.
So really, it's not specific to any one profession.
A lot of RAs,
Residence halls,
RCs teaching it.
Yeah. So I think it's people who have a real interest in mindfulness, some practice, some background, and want to bring it more fully into their life as a teacher and into their students' lives.
Did we cover that, Marie?
Yeah, I think it's great. And please be asking questions. We've got another one. So can you speak more to the age range for Koru? So I think the age range for effectiveness.
Thank you for asking that. We get asked this a lot. So at present, the majority of Koru teachers do work with emerging adults, people between 18 to 30. However, we have a lot of teachers working now in high schools, and the high school programs are thriving. We don't, however, yet have data on high school students. So, you know, it's experientially, we're saying it seems to be effective, but we have, you know, we really haven't tested on that population. Having said that, we have so many high school programs that this fall we are starting a randomized controlled trial in high school students. Additionally, there are lots of teachers who are teaching it to older people. So a lot of people learn Koru, and the first people they teach it to are their colleagues, other faculty and staff, and Koru has done great in those programs. People are teaching it at their churches. They're teaching it at community centers like the YMCA, and it seems to be doing well there. So I think Koru is applicable in a lot of settings, and I think as we have more teachers teaching in more places, we'll be able to gather more data. I think there's lots of possibilities.
Great. Okay, we have another question from MP Kelly. Who said, newbie, not even yet meeting your prereqs. Uh-oh, guys. When done teaching, will I have to commit to 45 minutes a day practice myself?
We don't ask for that.
Ever.
I'm not doing that.
Maria, do you know you like self-spotlit?
I know. Well, it's because I'm speaking.
So
I'm going to switch it back to you, though.
We do not have that kind of requirement. I tell you what I find. I find that as you teach Koru, it makes it so much easier to support your own practice. So personally for me, and I'd be curious to hear Flannery's experience of this, I found that I wanted to sit so much more because there was such a commitment to, you kind of have to practice to be teaching it, and it just fed my own practice. So we don't have a hard and fast rule.
And I would just echo that in terms of feeling inspired by the students, inspired to sit and to continue my own, you know, whether it's practice or a daily practice or attending retreats or continuing to feel in community with other mindfulness practitioners, reading books, listening to talks on the internet, you know, that teaching and the students and their questions really does feed that ongoing commitment to my own practice and to learning. And so I would be lucky to have a week where I'm practicing 45 minutes a day, but 10 minutes, 15 minutes, like the students, I find that doable. I find that possible. I find myself having mindful moments throughout the day where I really feel, I can feel that breeze. I can notice the way the sun is coming through the leaves. And to me, that's sort of a part of how the practice touches my day-to-day life and continues to feel applicable and ongoing, even if I'm having a hard time sort of finding the time, making the time to sit and do more formal practice.
That's great. I would also add, Holly and Libby, tell me if you disagree here, but I would imagine that you guys would say still, if you have some mindfulness practice, would still encourage applying, at least to just start the conversation too with Koru, because we're holding teacher trainings on an ongoing basis, and that there's also ways to, the app is free, so you can download the app too and start using it yourself and get the feel for what a student would be going through. And it's a process.
Yeah, I would echo what you're saying, Maria, and support that, and say that we've worked with a lot of curious and interested faculty, professionals, people who've emailed us, and we've unfolded how to help them get what they need along the way to come into our training program. So yeah, be in touch with us.
Yeah, just send us, and you can email us at info@korumindfulness.org.
So I think you should, Holly and Libby, since we're getting towards the end of the 45 minutes, I would put up the one slide on the teacher trainings. Ask you guys to share that.
Okey-dokey.
And then if people have final questions, please put them out there. And if you guys could speak to this briefly, and then as we've got the link down at the bottom here, and as Holly just said, the info@korumindfulness.org can reach us.
So
contact us directly.
One thing I want to make sure is clear. So Libby ran through the tuition costs. The tuition covers the entire training. So it covers your workshop, it covers your practical experience, and it covers your portfolio review. So, once you pay the tuition, you can then opt into whatever training program you want to go to. These are the next 3 we have on the calendar at present. One in California. We have 2 scheduled next year in Durham.
And you can apply anytime for any of those and just decide when you wish to, what time works for you. Does that seem clear, Maria?
I think so. Any other final questions? There was a question about scholarships, but you hit that one.
Yep, we do have reduced fee scholarships, and once a teacher's accepted, we send a scholarship application, and we work really hard to make it workable for everyone. So I don't think we've yet had to not make it feel workable for someone.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks so much.
We really appreciate it.
Yeah. Take good care, and let us know if you have any questions.
Yeah, and if you have any feedback for us, it's kind of weird. We're talking at you, we can't see you. Send us an email. Say hi.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Flannery.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Thank you all.
Bye, all.
Bye.
Bye.